Imagine two doors. Behind one is ease, applause, comfort, and shortcuts. Behind the other is struggle, routine, sacrifice, but also steady progress, meaning, and the kind of legacy that survives time. Which door do you open today? Ryan Holiday's Discipline is Destiny argues that the path to excellence is chosen, practiced, and guarded. This book is one of 4 in Holiday's Stoic Virtue series. It centers on temperance, self-control, restraint, and the daily practices that create a strong life. Holiday organizes the book into 3 domains: the exterior, the body; the inner domain, temperament; and the magisterial, the soul. Holiday opens with a reminder. The classical virtues, courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom, aren't antiquated. They're practical. This book is the map for temperance, a virtue that makes the others possible. The problem of modern life is not scarcity, it's excess. Holiday shows how freedom without discipline becomes license. From Eisenhower to Marcus Aurelius, temperance is the hidden engine for meaningful leadership. Part 1. The exterior, the body. Ruling over the body. Discipline begins with the body because the body is where intention meets reality. You can believe in discipline philosophically, but until your body obeys a schedule, accepts strain, and submits to routine, discipline remains an idea rather than a lived truth. Ryan Holiday makes it clear that the body is not an enemy to be indulged nor a machine to be abused, but an instrument to be trained. When the body is ruled well, it becomes an ally. When it is neglected, it becomes a tyrant that dictates mood, energy, and consistency. Those who mastered their craft across history understood this. They did not wait for motivation. They created systems that made action inevitable. Attack the dawn. Morning is the proving ground of discipline. To attack the dawn is to choose creation over consumption and intention over reaction. Holiday emphasizes that the early hours are quiet, undisturbed, and uncontested. This is when the world has not yet placed demands on you, and when excuses have the least power. Rising early is not about virtue, signaling, or suffering for its own sake. It is about claiming the only time of day that reliably belongs to you. Those who consistently wake early are not necessarily more talented, but they are more prepared. The strenuous life is the best life. A life without strain slowly hollows itself out. Holiday draws from Theodore Roosevelt's idea of the strenuous life to argue that comfort weakens the human spirit. Physical challenge sharpens discipline because it demands effort even when pleasure is absent. Hard training, long walks, difficult labor, these experiences toughen the mind by strengthening the body. Ease, on the other hand, breeds fragility. The strenuous life is not extreme, it is honest. It reflects the reality that growth requires resistance. Quit being a slave. Addiction is not limited to substances. It includes habits, cravings, and compulsions that quietly take control. Holiday shows how even powerful figures like Dwight Eisenhower recognized that self-mastery demanded breaking destructive dependencies. To quit being a slave is to reclaim agency. Discipline begins the moment you realize that desire does not deserve obedience. Freedom is not the ability to indulge. It is the ability to refuse. Avoid the superfluous. Excess weakens discipline by scattering attention and energy. Holiday points to Stoic thinkers like Cato, who deliberately chose simplicity not out of poverty, but out of strength. When you need less, you fear less. When you consume less, you are owned less. The superfluous clutters not just homes, but minds. Discipline flourishes in environments that are lean, intentional, and uncluttered. Clean up your desk. Order outside creates order inside. A messy desk, a chaotic workspace, or a disorganized schedule quietly drains willpower. Holiday reminds us that discipline does not require dramatic gestures. Sometimes it begins with restoring basic order. Cleaning your desk is symbolic and practical. It removes friction, sharpens focus, and signals that standards matter. Just show up. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is that discipline is consistency, not intensity. Lou Gehrig's legendary reliability was not built on feeling good every day. It was built on showing up regardless of mood, soreness, or circumstance. Holiday stresses that excellence belongs to those who keep their promises to themselves. Showing up again and again compounds into mastery. Sweat the small stuff. Small lapses erode discipline faster than major failures. Holiday explains that standards are preserved or destroyed in details. Cutting corners once makes it easier to do so again. Discipline requires vigilance in the small things. Punctuality, preparation, cleanliness follow through. These are not trivial. They are training reps for character. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Effort is unavoidable. Holiday reframes hustle not as frantic motion, but as sustained, purposeful labor. Discipline means working when applause is absent and rewards are distant. It means accepting that progress is earned through hours, not hacks. Hustle, in this sense, is patience expressed through work. Slow down, to go faster. Discipline is not recklessness. Holiday introduces the paradox that restraint increases speed over time. Burnout is not proof of commitment. It is evidence of poor pacing. Those who last learn when to rest, when to pull back, and when to preserve energy. Controlled intensity beats uncontrolled urgency. Practice. Then practice more. Talent is overrated. Practice is decisive. Holiday emphasizes repetition as the path to reliability. Discipline means returning to fundamentals even when novelty fades. Mastery is built by those willing to rehearse what others grow bored of. Practice is discipline made visible. Just work. Discipline rejects drama. Holiday highlights the quiet professionalism of those who work without complaint, excuse, or theatrics. They do not announce their effort or narrate their struggle. They simply work. This mindset preserves energy and keeps ego from interfering with progress. Dress for success. How you present yourself influences how you behave. Holiday argues that appearance can be a form of discipline, not vanity. Dressing with intention signals respect for the work, for others, and for yourself. It creates a psychological boundary between seriousness and carelessness. Seek discomfort. Growth requires voluntary hardship. Holiday draws on Stoic practices of discomfort to show that resilience is built, not discovered. Cold, hunger, fatigue, and difficulty teach the body and mind that discomfort is survivable. Discipline grows when fear of discomfort shrinks. Manage the load. Carrying too much breaks discipline. Holiday warns that responsibility must be matched with capacity. Overcommitment leads to resentment and collapse. Discipline includes knowing your limits and respecting them, not out of weakness, but out of sustainability. Sleep is an act of character. Rest is not indulgence. It is preparation. Holiday reframes sleep as moral responsibility. A tired mind makes poor decisions. A rested body sustains discipline. To sleep well is to respect the demands of tomorrow. What can you endure? Endurance defines the edge of discipline. Holiday asks readers to consider how much discomfort they can withstand without breaking. Discipline expands that limit gradually. Endurance is not about bravado, but about quiet strength. Beyond the body, physical discipline prepares the way for inner discipline. Once the body is trained to obey, the mind becomes more governable. This transition leads directly into the inner domain. Part 2. The inner domain, the temperament. Ruling over yourself. Once the body is trained, the real test of discipline moves inward. Temperament is where impulses arise, emotions flare, and decisions are quietly shaped. Ryan Holiday makes it clear that no amount of physical discipline can compensate for emotional chaos. Self-rule means you are no longer dragged by anger, fear, desire, or insecurity. Instead, you create a small but crucial gap between what happens to you and how you respond. In that gap lives freedom, judgment, and long-term consistency. Look at everything like this. Perspective determines suffering. Holiday urges us to train the mind to see events plainly, without exaggeration or emotional distortion. Most frustration comes not from circumstances themselves, but from the stories we attach to them. When situations are stripped of drama and seen for what they are, temporary, instructive, and manageable, discipline becomes easier to maintain. Clear perception keeps energy focused on action instead of complaint. Keep the main thing the main thing. Discipline collapses when priorities multiply. Holiday emphasizes that scattered attention creates shallow progress everywhere and mastery nowhere. Those who stay disciplined know exactly what deserves their best effort and what is not. They resist the temptation to treat everything as urgent. By anchoring themselves to a single guiding objective, they preserve momentum and avoid burnout. Focus, focus, focus. Focus is not a talent, it is a trained behavior. Holiday shows that distraction is a modern epidemic that quietly dissolves discipline. Every interruption fragments effort and weakens resolve. To focus deeply is to resist novelty and commit fully to the present task. Discipline here means guarding attention with the same seriousness as money or reputation. Wait for this sweet fruit. Many rewards arrive late, not early. Holiday reminds us that impatience is one of discipline's greatest enemies. The disciplined person accepts delayed gratification without bitterness. They understand that meaningful achievements mature slowly, like fruit that cannot be forced to ripen. Waiting well is an active form of discipline, not passive resignation. Perfectionism is a vice. Perfectionism pretends to be discipline, but it often masks fear. Holiday dismantles the myth that excellence requires flawlessness. In reality, perfectionism delays action and drains momentum. Discipline favors progress over polish. It values iteration, correction, and learning over endless preparation. Do the hard thing first. Avoidance taxes the mind all day. Holiday reinforces the Stoic rule of confronting difficulty early. By doing the hardest task first, discipline removes dread and clears mental space. What remains is lighter, more manageable work. Discipline thrives when resistance is met head-on rather than postponed. Can you get back up? Failure is not the opposite of discipline. Refusal to continue is. Holiday stresses that disciplined people fall like everyone else, but they do not linger on the ground. They recover quickly, extract the lesson, and return to the work without theatrics. Resilience is discipline expressed over time. The battle against pain. Pain is inevitable, but avoidance makes it worse. Holiday argues that voluntary hardship prepares us for unavoidable suffering. By choosing difficult tasks, enduring discomfort, and training resilience, discipline expands tolerance. Pain becomes information rather than a stop signal. The battle against pleasure. Pleasure is more dangerous than pain because it disguises itself as harmless. Holiday warns that unchecked indulgence dulls ambition and erodes restraint. Discipline does not reject pleasure entirely, but it refuses dependency. Enjoyment must remain a choice, not a necessity. Fight the provocation. Provocation hands control to others. Holiday emphasizes that emotional restraint is a form of strength. Discipline refuses to react impulsively, especially when insulted or challenged. By pausing instead of retaliating, you preserve dignity and strategic clarity. Beware this madness. Ambition without discipline becomes obsession. Holiday cautions against losing oneself in the pursuit of status, recognition, or validation. When ambition is not tempered by values, it leads to instability and regret. Discipline keeps desire aligned with purpose. Silence is strength. Not every thought deserves expression. Holiday shows how silence protects energy, focus, and reputation. Discipline includes knowing when not to speak, not to post, and not to explain. Restraint preserves authority. Hold your fire. Delayed responses prevent irreversible mistakes. Holiday praises the discipline of waiting, allowing emotions to cool before acting. Many conflicts resolve themselves when given time. Discipline values patience over immediacy. Temper your ambition. Ambition must be governed, not indulged. Holiday argues that disciplined ambition seeks contribution rather than applause. It measures success by integrity and longevity, not speed or scale. Money is a dangerous tool. Money amplifies existing character. Holiday warns that without discipline, wealth becomes corrosive. When treated as a tool rather than a goal, money supports freedom and service. Discipline keeps finances aligned with values. Get better every day. Small improvements accumulate into excellence. Holiday reinforces that discipline lives in daily increments, not dramatic transformations. Consistency quietly outperforms intensity. Share the load. Discipline is not isolation. Holiday highlights the importance of mutual responsibility. When burdens are shared, resilience increases. Helping others strengthens self-discipline by shifting focus beyond ego. Respect time. Time is the most limited resource. Holiday insists that disciplined people treat time with reverence. Wasted hours cannot be reclaimed. Awareness of finitude sharpens urgency and commitment. Put up boundaries. Boundaries are discipline in action. Saying no protects attention, energy, and purpose. Holiday argues that without boundaries, even good intentions become liabilities. Do your best. Discipline demands sincerity. Half-effort erodes character. Holiday concludes this section by reminding us that doing your best means full presence, honest effort, and acceptance of results without excuse. Beyond the temperament. Once inner discipline is established, responsibility naturally extends outward. Mastery of self prepares one for stewardship of others. Part 3. The Magisterial, the Soul. Elevating yourself. At the highest level, discipline transcends self-improvement and becomes moral responsibility. Holiday explains that true elevation is not status, but character. When discipline governs the soul, actions are guided by dignity, service, and long-term impact rather than impulse. Tolerant with others. Strict with yourself. Discipline is applied inwardly, not outwardly. Holiday urges generosity toward others and rigor toward oneself. This balance builds trust and authority without cruelty. Make others better. Power reveals character. Holiday emphasizes that disciplined people use influence to elevate others. Leadership becomes an act of service rather than control. Grace under pressure. Pressure exposes habits. Discipline steadies the soul when stakes rise. Holiday shows that composure in crisis multiplies credibility and minimizes damage. Carry the load for others. Service is discipline sacrifice. Holiday argues that leadership means bearing weight without complaint. Carrying the load for others strengthens purpose and unity. Be kind to yourself. Discipline without compassion becomes brittle. Holiday insists that self-forgiveness sustains long-term effort. Progress depends on resilience, not self-contempt. The power of giving power away. True authority grows when shared. Holiday highlights leaders who empower others rather than hoard control. Discipline resists ego-driven dominance. Turn the other cheek. Restraint disarms conflict. Holiday reframes forgiveness as strength, not weakness. Discipline chooses dignity over retaliation. How to make an exit. Leaving well requires discipline. Holiday stresses preparation, gratitude, and responsibility at the end of any role or chapter. Honor matters most when it is hardest to maintain. Endure the unendurable. Some challenges cannot be fixed, only borne. Discipline gives meaning to endurance. Holiday shows that dignity in suffering preserves the soul. Be best. Excellence is habitual, not exceptional. Discipline expresses itself through consistent quality and care in small actions. Flexibility is strength. Rigid discipline breaks under pressure. Holiday argues that adaptability preserves principles while allowing methods to change. Unchanged by success. Success tests discipline more than failure. Holiday warns that comfort and praise can erode restraint. True discipline remains steady regardless of outcome. Self-discipline is virtue. Virtue is self-discipline. Holiday closes with a central truth. Discipline is not merely a tool for achievement, but the foundation of a good life. When self-discipline governs action, virtue follows naturally. Discipline isn't a single heroic act. It's 1,000 small refusals and 1,000 tiny commitments kept. Choose one habit from this video. Commit to it for 30 days and watch how your decisions begin to stack into destiny.